What if the best presenters stopped trying to provide answers and allowed their audiences to discover critical pieces of information for themselves? Kind of like coaching. Now, imagine if there was a way to guide an audience the same way great coaches guide clients, not by telling people what to think, but by helping them uncover something for themselves. Well, we've got someone who helps leaders grow through executive coaching and training. And today we're going to look at how the skills behind powerful coaching can completely change the way you facilitate a room. Are you ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Rusty Tugman, is a sought after executive coach, leadership trainer, and keynote speaker. He is the leadership trainer and workplace coach for the Oklahoma Department of Human Services and a leadership trainer and coach for Strata Leadership. He's also the owner of Tugman Coaching and Consulting LLC, whose clients have included leaders and teams from corporate, sports, government, religious organizations, and I'm guessing more. Welcome to the show, Rusty.
Hey, Rob, it's great to be here. Listen, I'm just here to get my hands on a bobblehead.
Well, if you're listening in your car, you won't get a chance to see this, but he's talking about this bad boy.
Yes, yes.
There it is.
I want one of those.
Well, we'll talk about that later in the show,
Okay.
maybe.
All right.
You gotta, there only 100 Robbleheads roam this earth. 82 of them, I believe, have been given out. We've only got 18 more to go, but we'll talk about it. Let's see how well you do on the podcast. And with you, I want to start with a simple question, but it's important for the conversation. Let's just make sure everybody understands the difference between presenting to an audience and facilitating to an audience. Tell me how you separate the two.
Yeah, I think of it like this. Like I kind of think of it as a difference between like mentoring and coaching. So as a coach, that's one of the distinctions we have to make. And so I think of mentoring as pouring in, whereas coaching is drawing out. And I really think of it the same way as presenting. I'm kind of pouring into the audience, sharing, things that I've learned, my experiences, my expertise, where in facilitation, I'm drawing the expertise out of the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, particularly in a workshop type situation where we've got probably a U shape. We can sit on the corner there a little bit. Quite frankly, I don't know about you, but I actually keep a chair that looks just like theirs on the inside of that my lectern,
Mhm.
so I can get I don't even want to be in that trainer's chair. I want to get down to that level of the audience physically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Because the temptation for guys like, oh, me, are to talk a little too much. And actually physically getting down to that level reminds me, I'm just one of the crew now. I'm not absent from the crew, but if there's 20 people, I'm just the 21st voice, nothing more.
Yeah, absolutely. And a technique like that really does help to just kind of create the sense that, hey, we're all in this together. I'm just here as a guide leading. But as a facilitator, really what I'm trying to do is leverage the expertise that's in the room. And so that's one of the great things is I don't have to have all the answers because the answers are there. I just need to draw that out of them.
Yeah. And I've got a question. I'm foreshadowing. I got a question waiting for you about the importance of that and what happens when we don't do that. But we'll work our way there.
Okay.
Tell me, let's increase the difficulty of the questions now. All right. Uh, in a workshop, I think it's physically easier to facilitate and it's socially expected. In a keynote, little bit different, and yet I've seen great keynoters do it. Tell me the difference, maybe even a technique, but how you separate keynoting from workshops.
hmm Well, and that's a question I'd love to ask you because I would love to know how you kind of switch gears because it is different. It requires different energy. It requires a different type of presence. Um, you know, I think one of the things with keynoting that I have found is that initially, you're generating a lot of energy, on your own. Now you draw off the energy of the crowd as you get them going, but initially it's kind of, you're having to manufacture that energy for yourself. With a workshop, that energy is immediately, within the room and you're feeding off the crowd in the room. And that's one of the things that I think for a workshop that's a little bit different than a keynote, particularly if, depending on how long the workshop is, but if you're doing a full day workshop, I mean, one of the keys is managing not just your energy, but managing the audience's energy. With a keynote, yes, you're doing that to some degree, but a keynote, an hour, something like that. And so, you're not having to do that as long as you are within a training. You really have to pay attention to that. One of the things that I think about with this when I'm kind of switching roles when keynote and being a trainer is I've actually seen a lot of really good speakers who struggle with this. And so kind of two of my things as a when I'm doing a workshop is don't treat the audience as bigger than it is and serve the people in the room. Because I've seen a lot of speakers who they're doing a workshop, but it's almost like they're giving a TED talk and they're not really talking to the audience that's in the room. It's like they're speaking to an audience that's somehow bigger than what they have right in front of them. And it just comes across as really awkward and tone deaf. And then the other thing is, I want to make sure I'm serving the people in the room. Now, I'm doing that as a keynote speaker as well, but with a workshop, I think it's really key that I'm here for a purpose to help them learn a skill, to help them think through some kind of concept or something like that. And so, there's going to be a lot of back and forth to accomplish that goal.
Good. All right. And by the way, you got me energized when you said, Rob, I want to hear your version of this. So I'm ready to go. Uh,
Yeah.
Let me hit the back end and I'll come back to the front end. I think that we should almost develop as a mantra. Your company, I'm giving you a tag name. We serve the audience. Okay.
Right.
What else is more important than that?
Yeah.
Every answer that
Right.
we have on this conversation should probably end up saying, well, if it serves the audience, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I
Right.
remember, I'll give you a classic example. I remember at Xerox, which was the mecca of training, and yet they got this one wrong. Which was we were very calculated exactly where we take a break. The curriculum was developed. We break on page 4, right after module 6, whatever.
Right.
The problem is if we're serving the audience, as we just said, and we're losing them. They're exhausted. Maybe there was a team event the night before. Couldn't tell you. Maybe we gave them a little too much carbohydrates or protein for breakfast. Whatever it is, if the tree's fallen in the forest and no one's there to hear it, it's not communicating. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a serve the audience mantra of I don't care where you tell me to take a break in a workshop. We'll get to the keynote. I'm going to take it where it best serves the audience. Sometimes I'll wait a little. Sometimes I'll go a little faster.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll squeeze a 5-minute break in there just to
Mhm.
get them stretching because I
Right.
can't keep giving them big breaks.
Yeah.
But serve the audience. You
Yes.
nailed it. Now let me jump back real fast on that keynote one because that is a tough one. I ask you questions that I have questions about myself, but I'll tell you how I do it.
Hmm.
First of all, let's have no illusions. This is not a workshop. There's not going to be heavy facilitation. But you know what? Be nice to, as a change of pace to hear from that audience that we're serving. So, trick number one is get off the stage. Go get into the audience. We're mic'd up. Let's take it. Let's be a part of that audience. No, I won't sit down with them. But that physical movement delivers a psychological message to the audience. He's with us now.
Yeah.
And two, just remember that you're probably going to have to use what we call overhead questions, meaning we'll fire it to the whole audience so that top 5% that will talk no matter what. The Rob Jollises in the audience, basically. They'll jump in every time. Okay. The other 95% will go, so what's wrong with that guy?
Right.
But Key being that a nice overhead so we don't accidentally pick the wrong person because that's a little pressure in front of a big audience. Get physically in there and let's not have any illusions. This is going to be a long conversation.
Mhm.
Let's get in and get out and keep moving. That would be
Yeah.
my approach to it.
Yeah, and that's great. And to me, what you're describing there is really, in some ways, you're switching teaching formats,
Mm,
which that's a key thing in workshops is, what I try to do is kind of switch teaching formats about every 20 minutes. Um, and to me, that's part of what you're doing is, even when you're keynoting, okay, you're on the stage, now you're going into the audience, you're switching it up. And so it's just a way for them to maintain their attention, to maintain their enthusiasm for what you're doing. When you do, questions and entertain questions, however you structure that, again, you're switching a teaching format, and that just helps people to stay dialed in and locked in. But it also it's helping people who learn in different ways. It's helping them, really everybody, have something that they can grab onto.
yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. You're absolutely right. You know, when I said there's this 5% of Rob Jollises that will talk in a big room if you ask a question, there's about 50% of the room that will talk if you put them in smaller groups in
That's
that
right.
big room and
That's
let them
right.
be in a group of three or four. They're
Yeah.
no longer quite so introverted. It's just the wrong mix. So
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. We changed the mix. Actually, in my head, I always look at that as a pitcher. I'm just changing the pitch. I can't
Mhm.
throw fastballs for an
Right.
hour
Yeah.
or a day. A change up, a curve,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
slider, which is our language, Rusty, of a case study, a small group exercise, a video clip,
Yeah.
something that will
Yeah.
allow them to take a look at a different speed at what's
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in a workshop setting, what's really great about that is that you can match up the format with the concept that you're teaching. So for example, if I'm wanting to help this group develop some critical thinking skills or decision making skills, giving them a scenario that they have to work through is really helpful with that. Or I may be teaching a skill that I want them to practice immediately. And so we just go right into, some kind of try it now type practice. If I'm really having to lay out a new concept to them, it's going to be more of a lecture style. And so when you can learn how to match up the format with what it is that you're actually teaching, man, that synergy just creates a lot of momentum in a workshop.
Yeah. And you know your coaching stripes are coming out now. You're
Yeah.
sounding like more and more like a coach, which I like, and which is one of my goals today, which is to sort of take what you know as a coach, and that's why it spills into facilitation, and that's why it spills into discovery, as you just
Mhm.
said. Why do you think, and this is the one I teased a few minutes ago, why do you think so many presenters feel like they have the need to have all the answers? They got to have all the answers. When in fact, I'm of the opinion that that can actually hurt your presentation rather than help it. But why do you think that's our instinct?
Yeah, I think this idea or this picture of the sage on the stage, I think that is so ingrained in us. And I think there's a lot of speakers that they feel like that's what the audience is expecting. And so they put even more pressure on themselves to have all the answers and to know everything and I can never be stumped and all those kinds of things. And that's not what the audience is really wanting. The audience is there, they're wanting to learn. And so when you can involve them in that, it actually helps their learning process in a much better way. And so I think there's just kind of this myth out there that that's what a speaker is the expert that has everything figured out. And what I have learned is that whenever I've been able to just set that aside and just relax and be myself and engage the audience and get them involved in it, it's a much better experience for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you're either an unconscious competent or a conscious competent, meaning you either
Yeah,
know what you're doing or you're doing it right. You don't even know it. You're just hitting the ball in the fairway nice and deep
yeah,
because I'm living proof. I can tell you, particularly with technical presentations, and I've delivered them all. I was on government contracts for teaching technology to the Farmers Home Administration. There is remember I said we got a few Rob Jollises out there, probably got a Rusty or two out there. We've got a few technical people out there or analytical people out there that will actually get more and more annoyed when you know everything. It
Yeah.
may even inspire them to go deeper, to try and find a question that you might not know.
Yeah.
I learned early on, I always say you never lie to the audience, but I'm here with my hand in the air going, I lied a couple times, but my lies are good ones. Sound like a 4-year old. These were good lies, Dad. I'll tell you why. I only lied that I did not know the answer to a question that I did know the
Yeah.
answer to. Okay. So I could say, well, I think it's 8,
Yeah.
but I'm not here to guess. Let's go with 8 for right now. During the break, I'll run an email up and get this answered for us, and we'll get it confirmed. So we can calm that group down a little bit and say, okay, he really will tell us when he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's right. And this is one of the areas where coaching has really helped me as a facilitator and speaker. Because with coaching, you're trained to kind of start with this belief that the person you're coaching, they're the expert in their life and they have the answers within them. They just need some help drawing that out. So what's great about coaching is it takes so much of this pressure off because I can coach somebody in an industry that I know nothing about their industry, but I don't have to be an expert in their industry to help them. What I have to be an expert in is the coaching process and trust that they are the ones that have the expertise. Well, when I have that mindset, it just takes a lot of pressure off, a lot of stress off, and because I know that through this process, I can get them where they're wanting to go. And I don't have to be the expert in their industry. They've got that covered. Well, that has helped me even as a facilitator, when you're in a discussion and somebody kind of throws out a question that I may not know the answer to, man, I just turn that right back to the audience and go, hey, before I weigh in, I'd love to hear what you all have to say. What would you say to this? And then you get this great discussion happening. So that's one of the areas where coaching has really helped me to just take that pressure off of myself.
Brilliant. And actually, the technique that you're using, we call a relay. I mean, we're taking it from the group and
Yeah.
then we're spreading it out, probably to more than one person.
Hmm.
See, a reverse is when we think the person asking it knows the answer. And so, as a coach, we say, well, what do you think it might be? Or, in other words,
Yeah.
you sat there one on one where somebody said, what do I do, Rusty?
Yeah.
And
Right.
you realize, well, I could tell you, but I'm not really much of a coach if I do.
Yeah.
We got to teach you how to find those answers.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. A relay is great. Only thing I do, Rusty, is, and I relay a lot, is if I do know the answer, I want to make sure that I don't know a better term for it. I call it blessing the answer, but find a better one for me. Meaning, we may have 3 or 4 different versions of it. For me to end the discussion with, huh, well, that was interesting, is not going to do the trick.
Right.
I
That's
got to
right.
say, all right, I think we came up with some great answers. And right now, statistically, we're showing orange or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
finish it off a little
Right.
bit
That's right.
so that the group also knows this guy really does know his stuff. He's just involving us, but
Yeah.
I don't want to look nervous and go, great question. Anybody want to take a shot at it?
Right.
And then just leave it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, that is a great point. Yeah. And when you've done that in that way, now you've engaged that audience to where they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel valued. And so there's going to be much more ownership in that discussion, in that answer. And so to me, it's just a great technique, just getting people involved.
Yeah, I agree. And so now we're really kind of hitting that discovery button a little bit. In
Hmm.
coaching, I
Yeah.
think that's really natural.
Hmm.
When and I'm gonna pay you a compliment. You're coming through big time with me right now because when I booked you, I thought I see the connection, okay, between coaching and presenting.
Hmm.
It seems like Rusty does too, but we'll see. Okay. But you do. And if this is so valuable for anyone listening right now who is particularly on the workshop side, okay, who really look when you go 4 hours or 8 hours or 2 days, you're going to involve that audience.
Yeah.
And so those discovery skills, those coaching skills are important. How do you, other than relays, and maybe that's the answer, relays and reverses, are there other tips that you use as a coach in discovery that you might recommend transferring over to that workshop?
Yeah, so there's a lot, but here's where I would start. So, and if I can just give a little bit of background to
Yep.
this. So I've been speaking and training for 30 years. But about 4 years ago is really when I dove into coaching. And I'm a professional certified coach through the International Coaching Federation and a certified team coach and certified change leadership coach through the Center for Executive Coaching. And what I have learned through coaching has made me a better trainer. And one of the frameworks within coaching, particularly from the International Coaching Federation, is they've identified 8 core competencies in coaching. And so what I love to do, if you don't mind, is I would love to just go down the list of these, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and just your reaction to these as you kind of in real time apply them to like facilitating a workshop. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so the first core competency in coaching is demonstrates ethical practice. And so this is just the idea of personal integrity, being honest, being a trustworthy person. And so the idea is that, particularly within coaching, we really can't get anywhere unless there's mutual respect and trust. Uh, But that's true of a facilitator and a speaker as well.
Okay. Let me jump, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah,
I'm going to
please.
give you I'm going to give you a sentence and a half every time I think that
Okay.
you've got the
Yeah.
piece out there.
Yeah.
We accomplish that as presenters, believe it or not, in our introduction, which I think we fumble a lot. And I wish presenters would understand that just an introduction from the side of the room from somebody who doesn't know you does not establish the trust
Right.
that you're talking about right now. And we have to learn how to tell that story and create that trust in about 2.5 minutes. We really can't wear out our welcome, particularly in keynotes, but very important for us. And I think it comes on the front end
Yeah.
as they're learning who we are and what's in it for them to be there.
Yeah. So the second one is embodies a coaching mindset, and that's described as being open. So I'm open to hearing other people's ideas and perspectives, being curious. So I'm naturally curious about what other people are thinking, being flexible when and where I can, and then being client centered. So I'm totally focused on the client or the audience that's in front of me.
Right. Much easier one on the second one. That's just us learning how to ask questions that aren't direct and factual recall like we're in 11th grade. Opinion, case study, comparison, more creative questions and more creative techniques of those reverses and those relays and those overheads
Yeah.
where we're not really picking on anybody. We're
Yeah.
just letting that group kind of come to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So number three is establishes and maintains agreements. And so what this is in the coaching world is really about is we identify, okay, what is the goal or the outcome that we're trying to get to in this session? And so that's the idea is that we have a plan, we have a goal, and I'm going to maintain that agreement.
Perfect. That's about implementation on this side, meaning, yes, we're coming to inform, but you might see a little bit of entertainment and motivation and inspiration, but at the end of the day, we better be able to implement what we were teaching, and so that comes from us not just getting up in there telling stories, but actually bringing real live processes that are measurable with an implementation plan. That's, I think, ideally how we should be graded as presenters.
Yeah,
What's the group doing 6 months from now?
right. Yeah, that's great. So number four is cultivates trust and safety. And so this is described as partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows for sharing.
A little tougher for me on that one, but the environment is important. So I'm just going to cherry pick that last part and tell you that we got to get these clients to realize that you're bringing out a real live trainer right now or presenter. Get out of the office, go across the street, get into a Marriott ballroom, whatever, but get away from the desk, away
Yeah.
from the computers, and really create an environment that's conducive to learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of our responsibilities,
Yes.
Yeah, and so yeah, absolutely. So number five is maintains presence, and so this is just being fully present with the client.
Easy one, but for extra credit, I'll tell you, obviously we're present before and during, but during those breaks and during lunch, that is not you, it's not really lunchtime or break time for the trainer. It is time for those people that last small percentage, the opposite of Rob Jollis, okay,
Yeah,
really are looking for a little bit of your time. We can't be running outside and chit-chatting. We're in there for that audience, and that's a really nice time to bond.
yeah, yeah. That's great. Number six is listens actively. So we're focusing not just on what's being said, but also what's not being said.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't get great marks on that one, but I'm trying. I'm a work in progress, like most people.
Yeah,
I really am. We can all be better listeners. I've
yeah,
never met one who's climbed the mountain and is just sitting up there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
remember when I asked you, are you unconsciously competent
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
consciously competent? I'm I am a consciously incompetent listener, like many speakers. I'm working on it, which
Yeah.
means the more conscious I am of it, the better I can do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that leads right into the next one, which is number seven, which is evokes awareness. And so this is just all about facilitating insight and learning.
Yeah.
And so right there, we just had that where you're just recognizing, hey, this is an area I can grow in. I mean, that's evoking awareness.
You're absolutely right. And this and part two of that would be when we talk about discovery, not just asking a question of the audience, but going deeper with the
Mhm.
question. In other
Yeah,
words, a follow-up
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Really expand it, much like a coach would do.
Hmm.
I don't think you
That's
go,
right.
well, answer this question. Good. Well, let me put a check mark down. No, we're going to stay there a little
That's
bit,
right. That's
which
right.
means I have to think on my feet. I won't have that second question written down. I
Yeah,
have to listen, process, pause,
yeah.
and fire away.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine who is a fantastic facilitator. And on that point, he says, go deep before you go on.
Beautiful. Ooh, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Love that.
And then number eight, so the last one is facilitates client growth. And it's described as partners with the client to transform learning and insight into action. So we're moving to action.
Yep. And I'll double back on that implementation. And I don't mind hitting it twice because, quite frankly, I'm telling you, what I've learned in my career is nothing else matters if that group doesn't implement.
Yeah,
Unless you're, I mean, I've done a few dinner talks. I
yeah.
really am the monkey on the box there.
Right.
I'm the organ
Yeah,
grinder's
yeah,
monkey. I'm just there to make people laugh and enjoy their coffee. But the other 99.9% of the times, we're brought out there for a reason. So just telling the group they have to implement or inspiring them for that day is not enough. Our
yeah,
participant materials, our follow up. My goodness, we can complain about virtual communication, but what a wonderful way to virtually coach the group and
yeah.
the company to make sure that this crop that we just planted actually grows.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So those are the eight core competencies within coaching, but as you just demonstrated, I mean, those are really great points for us to keep in mind when we're facilitating a workshop specifically, but also I think in keynote as well, but particularly within a workshop. And so that's why like those competencies and really thinking through, okay, how would I apply those in my role as a facilitator of this workshop have really helped me, I think, to be a better trainer.
I could hear it. And the funny thing is, I didn't tell you this, but I did get certified as a coach and Professional Business Coaching Alliance.
Hmm.
And I was not the greatest student. I struggled.
Yeah.
I struggled with something you didn't struggle with. I struggled with how do I walk into a dry cleaner and coach a dry cleaner when all I've done is bring a shirt there or two.
Right.
And like you think, it's not your answer, Rob. It's their answer. You're there to help them find it. I could repeat what you said because I heard it. Guy's eyes were rolling at the top of his head by the time that class was over because I just couldn't get it because I'm used to as a trainer
Yeah.
providing the answers.
Yeah.
And but what is rich in this conversation, and I appreciate about you, Rusty, is that you really are tapping into something that I struggled with as a coach, and perhaps I'm struggling with a little bit as a presenter. And I'm telling people that because if I'm struggling, I don't think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
We all struggle here, so this is a really important bridge that you're building And I see the synergy. It's very clear.
Yeah, and when you study coaching, even the etymology of the word, really the picture that's being painted is the idea that we're taking someone from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, when we're doing a keynote or when we're facilitating a workshop, doing some kind of leadership training, the goal is still the same. We're taking this audience where they are and helping them get to where they want to be. And so that's the whole idea.
Yeah. No, you're right. Actually, I had I won't name the client, but it's a major corporation signed me up for I did a workshop, 2-day workshop, and then we did a series of 20 uh, every other week virtual team coaching sessions. I was very proud of myself. I was laying them out, man. I was like, we'll do a time management piece. I'll throw it. I had all these modules I was going to put on there. And after session number one, they brought me in a Zoom call and went, "What are you doing? You keep teaching. We don't want you to teach anymore. We want you to facilitate. We want you to coach this team." And the next 19 sessions were bringing in clients that they were working with and developing strategies and really making strategic
Yeah.
decisions. And uh, I loved it. But you see how blind I couldn't see
Yeah.
it. I needed
Yeah.
the client to tell me.
Yeah. Well, and that's when you're learning how to be a coach, and you probably experienced this. That is one of the big struggles that people have is because you're talking to someone, I've got the answer. I want to tell you. And with coaching, you have to be disciplined to kind of stay engaged and keep drawing it out of them. But the same is true, I think, with facilitating is I can kind of get caught in that certainty trap where I know the answers. Here it is. Here's what you need to do. And yeah, and by the end of a training, you've kind of worn people out because they want to engage and you haven't given them a chance, to do that. And so yeah, so I think that's one of those. It's just kind of a mindset shift, and one of the hardest things for me when I'm facilitating a training is, man, I've got all these great stories that I want to tell that I can tell in a keynote, but it doesn't fit here, or it's like, okay, I could tell that story, but actually what would be better is to kind of get them in small groups and wrestling with this, or something like that. And so I think just kind of, making those shifts can be really difficult. And you see that a lot in coaching.
I see it in coaching, I see it in presenting, and I live them both.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I will tell you that I have better days more often than I have bad days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I'm not having a day, it's because like everyone else, I put a little too much material into the presentation.
Yeah.
I'm finding myself I don't have a whole lot of room, so
Yeah.
I do know the answers. Let me give you the answers.
Yeah.
When in fact we started this conversation by talking about letting that audience discover,
Yeah.
just like one-on-one. When they
That's right.
discover it, they'll own it.
Yeah.
Uh, Outstanding. Look, if we're coming down the home stretch, if someone's listening right now wanted to become a more engaging facilitator starting tomorrow,
Hmm.
we talked about a bunch of different things. Tell them, give me one thought that you'd like them to leave with. If they leave with no other thoughts, hold on to this one, folks.
I think it's one we've already mentioned. It- and it's serve the people in the room. I mean, that is why you're there, is to help them get better. And you've been brought in, by somebody because they believe you can help them learn something that's going to create greater outcomes for their business or, organization, whatever it is. And so, as basic as that is, it's one that I see violated quite a bit, because sometimes a person comes in and they're there to serve themselves, or just to be able to say, "Hey, look what I did, so I can put this on LinkedIn." And it's no, you're there to serve the audience, and what's interesting is if the audience believes that about you, they'll be forgiving. They'll give you grace if you don't get everything right, if you mess up or whatever. If they truly believe you are there for them and to help them, they're going to connect, and it's going to be a great experience for them, even if you don't feel like you've done your best. And so that's what to me, I just think it just keeps coming back to that is serve the people who are in the room.
Well, not only do I agree, but we don't have to apologize for that.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm doing sales training classes for 4 decades. I start with we got to ask questions and listen. People are kind of whistling and look at the ceiling until I have them already play a conversation they've had about 10 minutes before I make that point
Yeah.
of them not asking questions and not listening.
That's
Okay,
exactly
they
right.
don't see it.
Yeah.
They know it, but they don't apply it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bat one back at you. I'm taking go deep before you go on with me. And
Yeah.
I'm taking it for a bunch of reasons. First of all, I think in sales, we need to do that when we sort of start scratching at the problem. Just because somebody goes, that is an issue, we don't go, okay, well, here's how to fix it. We got to go deep before
Yeah.
we go on. But I like it in presentations too. If we're going to ask questions, let's not make it look like we're ticking a box and asking,
Right.
a quota of questions. The second I get a follow-up question, I'm hearing somebody who's listening to me genuinely interested and
Mhm.
wants to hear more.
Yeah.
That's flattering.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, we got two just fantastic, by the way. Love the conversation. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. Probably the best way is just LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So yeah, just go to LinkedIn and I love to connect with people and start a conversation.
Yep, he's Rusty Tugman, folks. There's nothing tricky about that name either. It's Tugman the way it sounds, and it's Rusty the way it sounds, which makes things easy. But that's how you'll find him on LinkedIn, and we'll have, I believe, we'll have your website up there as well. Yeah, we will. So we'll have that on our site. Absolutely love the conversation, and I felt like I got a little coaching myself. So thanks. Thanks for grandfathering me in. I wouldn't say it's Robblehead quite yet, but we'll talk
Oh
about that
no.
once we go off the air here. We'll talk
Okay.
Robblehead. But in any case, thanks, Rusty. Really appreciate the conversation and love what you did with this topic.
Well, thank you, Rob. It truly was an honor to be on. Thank you.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.